Welcome to another episode of Panakal Podcast for Geeks, a show about good friends hanging out, talking about all the stuff we love. I consistently forget the pitch, just so you guys know. Like, you would think I'd have that memorized by now, but I definitely do not have it memorized.
You just need it printed above your computer
Well,
so you can
what
just
I
look at it
normally,
while
what I normally do is I have a list of questions for my guests, or things I would like to talk about. And at the very top of that list is the pitch. Like, you would think I'd have that memorized by now, but I definitely not. I could hear
Very
myself.
good.
So we're
Sorry.
good.
Has to be.
That's okay.
I had it.
So anyone doesn't know, we have to do an audio test every time because we've had previous issues with audio in the past.
We've had weird chicanery.
Yeah, the stuff just breaks, man.
That's just we had weird chicanery right before this.
Yes, we did. Nelson. Oh, our guest today. Sorry, I forgot to talk about it. Our guest today is Nelson Spratt, who's been watching the show for a minute. You've been a fan of my work for forever. I met you. I believe I met you at my second Dragon Con, so that would have been like 2017?
Say I was 17 or 18, sounds right, yeah.
So 2017 or 18, he was helping our friend Brian, I believe, at a show. Comes over to Brian's in the vendor hall. Oh, by the way, I forgot to also introduce my co-host, Andrew Sides. This is just the way the day is going for us, guys. Sorry. And then Nelson came over. You came over to look at some work in the art show, and you immediately were like, you fell in love with everything down there.
Yeah, dude, I fanboyed all over your stuff. It was pretty gross. You were really cool about it, but I could tell you wanted me to back up a little bit.
Yes and no, because there's a line where I love it when people get excited about my work, but also there's a point where I'm just like, how crazy is this person? And I later realized that you were friends with Brian and stuff, and I'm like, okay, you can't be that bad a person if you're hanging out with Brian, because Brian's a stand-up dude.
He's a good dude.
So, but yeah, it was just fine. But you were also very excited about Nelson's one of these rare people, Andrew, where you see him at a show and he genuinely likes everything he's looking at. Like, you really like art, and that's the kind of person you want in your fan base, right?
Yeah. Well, see, I like creators. I like creators and creatives. People that are doing stuff that they're passionate about, making cool stuff that they like. That's what I want to see. And a lot of that love for art comes from my inability to conjure it in those forms myself. Like the stick figures are sad. Any actual figure drawing is even more sad. So my art, my wife and I are both crazy art appreciators. We decorate with living artists, local artists. Anytime we get to go somewhere, we're like, let's see what's happening here.
Culture. Well, cool. Yeah. I want to ask you what artists you have up on your walls and stuff. But first, we'll do the usual thing where I ask what have you guys been reading or watching, or in general, what interesting stuff have you been about?
I got a guilty pleasure that we're binging right now. Actually, I'm open to judgment here. People judging me for it, but I've recently restarted watching the Supernatural series.
So Tanya and I were talking about the potentially rebooting it, because her and I were thinking about doing an audio podcast on Supernatural, maybe. But it's also have you ever met Supernatural? There's fans, but then there's the fans.
Yeah.
So
you both have seen the entire show then? Because I've only seen up to the 5th season. My wife, she's seen most of it. She was like, yeah, after the 5th season, the showrunner dropped out, and after that, she lost interest. And she's like, you don't have to do that.
That's the thing. Oh, okay. The showrunner drops out, and they don't have they had decent. I think I don't want to shit on it, okay? Because it's not a bad show. It's very campy, and if you're willing to look at it from the angle of hey, I can still watch this show and have a good time based on the fact that this is I know it's very predictable. And they did I think around season 5 is when they start going a little bit towards the theological angle. So they start introducing some cool stuff where you're like, that's different. But then there's a point. How many seasons were there? 9?
I think
12.
Okay, so there's a point where stuff feels repetitive. And then there's a
Yeah.
point where they basically made a comment saying, as long as the fans want it, we're going to keep making it. Which I was like,
Yep.
that's a bad idea, because there's a hard line where you just got to stop, like, end on a high note, and they don't. And
I like that they don't take themselves so seriously. Like, there's so many like quips at their own writing team. I think there's a line at one point where like somebody says, so it's like, is it really jumping the shark if you never come back down? And like
right.
I thought that was a super funny, poignant remark, because it's wild. We're only in season 6, and we plan to finish it this time. This is our third attempt.
I mean,
I think we're
finish.
going
I've
down
seen
season
it.
5.
It's so I didn't. So Tony and I got. I'm not going to talk about how it ends because I don't want to give anything away to anyone who hasn't seen it.
Spoilers.
But well, spoilers have been out for a while. Too bad for you.
Yeah,
but I'm not gonna do it. Either way, I actually had a little bit of a with how it ended, because I was like, it should have ended differently in my opinion. I didn't like how some of that went down. But Tony actually had a really good fan. I guess it would be a fan theory. And I'll tell you about it after the show. For those of us who have actually seen it all, you've seen it all the way through, right, Nelson?
No.
Okay, so when you're done with it, I'll tell you the fan theory, because I
can't wait.
it's not a bad theory, but I wish they had explained that way in the show, but I've been like in San Diego Comic-Con, where the first and last time I went to get a photo of the boys, I was, my booth at Comic-Con is excuse me, like 100 feet away from where the WB does their signings and photographs and everything. So you can see, I get to see all the shows different, like when they had the Flash, people from the Flash come on, you can see them all lining up at the top there and sitting down for autographs, and I can watch from a distance. But when Supernatural was about to come on, I walked over there because Tony and I are huge fans. So I was like, I'm going to get a photograph of them for her. And the amount of older women who crowded into that spot, pushing out all the younger kids, I was like, dude, this is ridiculous. And I basically like hung my hand up, took some photos, and I squeezed out. I hate crowds. And I told Tony, I'm like, I'm never doing that again. But their fan base is like, you can't talk about the show the way we were talking about it right now without them getting like super ramped up. Like, there are bad episodes in there, and there are campy ones. Like, the show attracted me initially because when I was younger, my friends and I shot horror movies, and we had my friends and I always thought they kind of stole our ideas, because we had an idea of detective cops running around with an angel hunting demons, which is kind of what these guys are doing. And I was like, they stole our idea, but all we had is a bunch of like hand camera videos. We had nothing we actually like put out there, right? So how do you, my friends and I always had this theory, like, if you have an idea and you don't do a lot with it, at some point that idea jumps ship, right? It goes away from you to the next person, because it's like, fuck you, man, if you're not going to use me.
It becomes part of the collective, the collective unconscious. I
Yes.
actually recently saw a video game, a board game that was kickstarted a couple of years ago, and I just saw it because it's now made its way to Amazon, and I was devastated because the mechanics are just too similar to a board game that my wife it made like 8 years ago, and we've been really trying to find a way to move it, to get something on it, but it was really frustrating.
Right. So that's that kind of stuff just happens, I guess.
Goes away. Yeah.
So,
talking
There's
about fan
enough.
theories.
I was gonna say, like, there's enough like in the zeitgeist that actually someone that has the same line of thinking that you did. It just happens to be around the exact same time or whatever.
yeah. I mean, I'm not, I got over it obviously, because I was like,
this
this thing's actually happening. I'm at that point I was still like, I was actually still doing a lot of extra work trying to like get into the film. I actually, before I started doing artwork, I did a lot of acting on the side with friends, and I tried to get into film. Believe that or not, it was fun till it wasn't fun. But so Ashley had a comment here where she says Supernatural fandom is why she didn't get into it, and it's right up there with Sherlock and Doctor Who. Now, Doctor Who is I'm actually working on a tattoo in Gallifreyan, because Doctor Who is actually one of my biggest. I love.
You know what though, like, don't let the fandom stop you. Actually.
Oh, I don't.
Just watch it.
I think Ashley should.
Yeah.
Just watch Supernatural. Anyone, Supernatural it's a good show, man. Just watch it, but you got to go in there knowing that it's going to be campy at times and serious at times.
The first season of Buffy the Vampire Slayer was campy. The first season of so many Doctor Who iterations.
Any episode of Doctor Who, there's a point where you're just like, that's where the budget went down. Like.
I don't think there's like a bait and switch with Supernatural either. Like it's kind of lays its cards on the table pretty quickly as to what it is.
Yeah.
At least that was my interpretation when my wife started rewatching it. I kind of like poked my head in. I was like, yeah, this seems about what to expect, but it draws you in, or at least it did for me. But I have no idea what happens beyond the first 5 seasons. So
you guys both have to finish them, and then we'll talk about it.
I'm likely never finishing it just because I like I got the 5 seasons was good for me, and I'm like, yeah, cool. I don't have a strong need to see the rest of it. Maybe I will at some point
now. So like that's what we watch as our couple of shows before it's time to get ready for bed. At the end of the day, watch a couple.
Dude, I watched it like I had to make sure the TiVo recorded it every week. Like, yeah, exactly. And there were weeks where I didn't record, and I had to message my friend and be like, "Please get this on the Plex server. I really need to watch it."
You, Alan, what have you been reading and watching?
Did I talk about the RG35XX last time? Do you remember?
Yes,
I did. Okay, so I won't talk about that this time.
Actually, how? Because I know you mentioned that
so
you were having issues with some of the ROMs.
So yeah, so basically for those of you guys, I'll do a quick thing on this, and then I'll move on to something cooler. But this is the RG35XX. Basically, it looks like a Game Boy, except it's got some extra buttons on the back too. And the ROMs basically you can find anywhere online, which is pretty illegal. But the system itself came loaded with a lot of ROMs on it, and then you have to tweak it. Some people smarter than I am figured out you can not use the OS that comes in it. You want to flash it and run an OS called Garlic OS, which makes it cleaner and easier and saves your battery. But basically, it's got like almost every game I used to play on Nintendo as a kid, which is pretty much where I'm floating right now. And then it's got arcade games, which there's a ton of arcade games.
Have you gotten it working yet?
So the arcade side of it is not working yet, so I don't know why that's not working, but I did find on Neo Geo Splatterhouse the other day, which is the one game I really wanted to play. And a Nintendo side, I've been playing a lot of Bubble Bobble and Ninja Gaiden, which were 2 games I used to really love as a kid. There's too many though. There's too many games. Like there's a coolness factor of having all these games, but then there's also you're never gonna get through all this ever. It's just, but for $70, it's also been fun to just experiment with it because like figuring out how all the little Garlic OS it makes me feel like when I first try to learn some Linux. It's got a cool like you can tweak a lot of it, you can change a lot of it, but if you do the wrong thing, you're gonna break the whole system. So,
coding is a level above. I've been trying to. I'm doing a course trying to teach myself Python, and it is.
Python's not easy.
It's not going well.
Yeah, no, I understand.
So I started reading.
I've never had a strong. Oh, what is that?
It's Witch Hat Atelier. Atelier. I'm not sure how to say that name, but
Atelier.
Yeah, my friend sent this to me, and it's manga, so you got to read it. Basically reading it backwards.
Who's the artist?
What's the artist is Kamome Shirahama. That sounds right in my head.
Okay.
The artwork's beautiful. The story is really good. This is only volume 1. I've read most of this on my vacation last week. But it took me a minute to.
Atelier.
Yeah, it's like, dude, you can get this at any local bookstore for like $10. Whatchamacallit, it took me a minute to I had to like reorient myself with reading manga because the last I don't know if you guys ever read Berserk or Berserker. I think it's called Berserk. Or Fist of the North Star. Those are the things I used to read when I was younger, and this is totally new to me. But I had to you got to read backwards, which is not it's normal for Japanese culture, and you also have to read the images that same way, right? Like you're
Wait,
reading.
how do you read the comic? You like what panel goes to what panel when it's a manga?
So the panels go from
Right
from
to
left
left.
to yeah, right to left. It's just the way you're reading the book from right to left. You got to read the panels that way too. So it's like it takes a minute to orient yourself because I was reading the panels like, wait, that didn't make sense. How did she get back down there? Like, and then I was like, oh, wait a minute.
Oh.
And once you basically have to slow your brain down and just say, hey, listen, this is something different. But I can't describe what it's a wonderful story and the artwork's amazing. And,
Cool.
and
Is it
even
just
like
that one book, or is there like a
no,
series?
there's like I think there's like 10 volumes out now. This is just volume 1. This is just one.
Okay.
Um, but like I can't, I'm used to reading books on Kindle when I'm on vacation because all my books are in one spot then. So this is like, I finally got some physical books. And I will talk about one more book really quickly because I read 2 books on this
Actually,
trip.
going off of that, you did mention, I think it was you that mentioned recently that you wanted to start reading some more physical books again.
Yes, because I wanted I missed the
The
feel
feel
of
of
it.
it and everything.
Like this
Yeah.
book is, it was just fun to sit and read. But also since it's like a comic book, I treated this like a baby and I wouldn't take it to the beach. So I kept this in really good condition. But this book, on the other hand, I was all like bending and reading. But this is this is Dark Harvest. You can tell it's already worked because I've been reading it on the beach. But so this is another book I picked up. It's a horror book. It's going to be a movie apparently. It's about a town where every year they release what is basically called an October Boy, which is a pumpkin head scarecrow that walks through town, and the young men, teenage boys in town, have to hunt it down, and whoever kills it, gets all the prize and glory. Now, it reads. I haven't finished it. At the moment, it reads a little bit like The Great Pumpkin, like you're sitting around waiting for this thing to see if it actually exists. But there's enough stories of it. And Stephen King really said this guy was a really good author and gave him props. So that was like, if King likes this guy. And it's a short read. I haven't finished it, but it's only about 150 pages or so.
Harvest, you said?
Dark Harvest. I picked it up at Barnes & Noble for like $10.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I'm gonna notate that down.
Let me see what I got here.
That sounds interesting.
That does sound cool. I get
Josiah's
to
talking about PlayStation games. Sorry, go ahead.
I get to listen to the audiobooks on my commute is really, so that's about the only way that I've been able to consume any kind of.
So audiobook wise, I just finished Fairy Tale by Stephen King, which is really good. Audiobooks is how I usually listen to books. Just wanted an excuse to sit down and read something.
That's a gorgeous cover on it.
Yes.
Actually, wait, who is does it mention who the cover artist is on that?
On Dark Harvest?
Yeah.
No. This book came out in 2006?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I wonder who it is. The style almost looks familiar, but I can't quite place who it might be.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious. So
yeah,
round
that's
off
what I
like
got.
nice. I've been rewatching Avatar: Last Airbender
Oh.
for a couple weeks now. We're at like the Ba Sing Se arc of the story and all that.
Mm-hmm.
It's mainly because like we wanted to put something else on for my daughter that wasn't just like her usual run of things. So
Rapid
it's
children's
been
programming.
yeah. So it's been like a bit of the Avatar stuff, which she has kind of an interest in, and then we last night actually showed her a few episodes of Powerpuff Girls, and she was really into that.
How old is she?
4.
4. Yeah, I tried to show Powerpuff Girls to my daughter at 7, and it was a little it was a little too heavy. Like just a
Really?
Oh,
little
really?
old enough to where she was like, "Well, that's troublesome," Like what happens to these characters after this horrible thing? They just kind of pretend nothing happened. And you're like, "Yes, that's because it's cartoon. It's pretend. It's not a big deal." But
Right.
that was difficult for
Well,
her.
my kid's been getting into Tales. She watched Tales of the Jedi. She likes Ahsoka, so she sees Ahsoka in anything she wants to see it. But there's some stuff where you're like, like last year on this trip we watched a new episode 1, which is fine with the pod racing and all that. She didn't see the last part where Maul gets
I'm waiting
chopped in
for
half.
episode 3.
Right? So then this year we try to watch episode 2, but it opens up with like the giant worms trying to kill Padme, and then Obi-Wan slicing off the bounty hunter's hand in the bar, and then right when she's about to tell him, like, she gets a dart in her face and she dies, and I'm just like, we're not watching this right now. Like I was like, oh, I totally forgot about half the stuff, and I was just like, and she was like, what was that? And I'm like, oh, she went to sleep, like, how do you explain to the kid? So like the Ahsoka one has one where she cuts off this Inquisitor's head, and I had to be like, oh, and they show the mask fall and just like deflate. So I was just like, oh, that guy's head was just full of air. So when she watched it with her cousins, she turned around and looked at him and said, his head was just full of air. And everyone in the room's looking at me like, is that the lot you fed her? I'm like, yeah.
Yes, that's absolutely the one. Yeah.
It's not going to be like, yeah, his head just went flying off.
We didn't moderate my daughter's intake of television until we were watching The Force Awakens for like the 17th time. And she they shot the stormtroopers and she said, pew, pew, you're dead. And then I was like, ooh, yeah, maybe we should moderate some of this. But the fantasy violence, like we read her, my wife read her The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, and there's all kinds of fantasy violence in there. So like we Harry Potter's not unviolent. She read through the Harry Potter series. So like my daughter's in touch with it, and I think my son at 4 doesn't quite understand those things yet. He definitely doesn't know what death is. So
right. We have been trying, or at least like I have, like whenever we watch certain things, I've been taking a tact of like explaining like how that, like the effect of it or whatever, like how that's being done. Like a really good example was my daughter watched Thriller recently. Like I think she watched it for the like really paid attention to it the first time like a few months ago or whatever. And I was explaining that it's like they're wearing makeup. It's like Halloween costumes kind of thing. There's one scene where one of the zombies has like blood dripping out of his mouth, and I was like, I told her like, how they did that? They did it like it's corn syrup. It's basically, I told her like it's corn syrup that they dye red, so it looks like blood, but it's actually a bunch of syrup that's coming out of his mouth. And she's like, oh, okay.
You gave her a lesson in the practical effects, and that helps connect the fact that that's a fantasy. That's not really happening. This is a story that's being told.
See, nobody did that for me when I watched Thriller. I saw that.
Jackson
turns. When he turned that. So when I was a kid, I saw that with my cousins, and the zombies didn't scare me. What stayed with me was the werewolf. Like I remember laying in my bed and thinking it was like standing by my door, and then you like close your eyes to be like, just go away, and you open it and it's like closer, and I was just like, And I remember my dad was like, I told you. My dad would always say the same thing. Told you not to watch that. Like. He would always give you that like loose warning, like it's a little scary. If you really want to watch it, you can. It's like, how about you be a parent? Just be like, get out of here, man.
I think she's like in the same mentality as me, because like when like my first real instance of like, oh my god, this stuff is fake, and you could make people think that this is real was I saw a behind the scenes of how Jurassic Park was made. It was like the one that was narrated by James Earl Jones and everything, and that was like the first time I realized like, holy shit, like all of this is fake, and it is just like you could do anything with it. And I like dove real like headfirst into that when I was really young, like just kind of learning like all that kind of stuff. And she seems to be in that same kind of mindset where she's aware enough to be like, whoa, this is weird. The minute you tell her like, it's fake and like here's how they did it and stuff, she's like, oh, okay. Like going to the werewolf thing in Thriller, like she's mostly bored with that part because she's like, I just want to get to the zombie part. I want to listen to the music. Right. I'm like, oh, okay.
I mean, I don't know, that werewolf, that zombie Michael Jackson, man, that like I can still see that in my head. Like if I close my eyes right now,
it was creepy.
It was creepy. That was a good video. Like
I think
one of the best.
I want to say I think it was 7 when I saw the local theater here in Skokie played all 3 Star Wars movies in one day with intermissions, right? And my friend Jerry was my best friend at the time. He lives in Florida now, unfortunately for him. And sorry, Andrew. But like,
I was drinking, so I couldn't say I'm sorry for your friend, but
he had allergy issues here in Chicago, but living in a warmer climate helps him. Either way, we went to this movie when we were both 7. We watched all 3 parts in one day. I remember there was intermissions where we got food and stuff and came back. And I remember, at that age, I knew it wasn't like real. Like I was like, it wasn't like sitting there going, I want to go live in that world because it looks cool.
I'm gonna go live there.
I still remember the feeling when I first saw Darth Vader. I was like, that guy is not a nice person. And, Joe, who's watching on the show, and him and I had a long conversation a couple weeks back about how, like, if you look at Vader's whole arc, like, he was a scary motherfucker. Oh, I can say that on the show. It's my show. Okay. And
it's been the elapsed amount of time.
Yeah. And he was just like, when you see him in those movies, you see a base level of who he's going to be. If you read about him later and read comics, he's wildly out of control and super strong. But, I saw him at 7 years old and he scared the bejesus out of me. What scared me the most actually was the lizard dude, Bosk, because I saw V with my parents as a kid and those guys scared the fuck out of me.
Oh, yeah.
But, I remember leaving the theater talking to my cousins, and my cousins are always the ones I'd be like, how do they do this? How do they do that? And my one cousin explained, like, how they made the lightsaber effects, right? Like, how did they go, like, pull the film and basically highlight it, right? Frame by frame, And that's why that scene in New Hope where Obi-Wan's lightsaber isn't lit up and you're like, fix it! It takes 2 seconds.
They didn't fix it when he did the re-release in 1996. He didn't even fix that one frame.
Preach, man! I know. I saw the special edition in the theaters. I was like, why?
It was like the one thing I expected him to fix, and he's like, "No, I added a new scene with Jabba. No, I added a bunch of lizards for no reason. No, I added this one transitional scene because I could. I'm George Lucas, but I'm not gonna fix the one part in the movie that like just needed."
I think it's because I think he's got a little bit of that. Too many people told him to fix it, and he was just like, "Fuck all you guys.
I'm gonna do what I want. I'm George Lucas."
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. After I don't want to have an argument about the end of the Star Wars franchise because that's easy to do with a bunch of geeks.
So
have they? I'm trying to remember. Have they ever fixed it?
No, he's never fixed that. He's never fixed the scene in Return of the Jedi where Boba Fett's helmet and whole body is reverse framed for 3 seconds. He's never fixed any of the errors. He's never fixed the part where Lando bumps his head into the ceiling. Because there's all these things he's like, I don't really care. The story is still
it's still not fixed though.
Don't be besmirching the dewbacks. That's a comment to you, Nelson, by the way. The dewbacks were awesome. I'll give him props for that. I will not give him props for putting a whole song and dance number at Jabba's palace. That was dumb. One of the guests,
honestly, I was gonna say, like, out of all the special editions stuff, that is the only one that I really have an issue with. Is that the Jabba Palace extension? Like, if you take that out, all the rest of the editions, I don't care about. That's all fine.
It broke the flow. It broke the vibe. It broke the feeling. The whole just nature. It did break it.
Jason Smith said there's no errors. Jason clearly has not watched these movies.
No errors. Okay.
Jason, the whole movie is full of errors, but that's the beauty of the movie.
He's suggesting that the errors make it great.
Here's the thing. Episodes 1, 2, and 3, we're going to get into a Star Wars discussion real quick. But the original ones, the beauty of those movies are those errors, right? But as time changed and the stuff evolved, he should have fixed it.
Considering how weird he was about wanting to upscale certain things, it is odd that he didn't go back to fix that.
He just doesn't.
So he did there was, I guess there were things like I remember do you remember him taking Luke scream in Empire Strikes Back, taking it out, putting it back in, and taking it out again in Bespin Cloud City?
Oh.
When he gets his hand cut off,
When he gets his hand cut off,
Like they remove the scream, they put it back,
Well, it's not even when his hand gets cut off. It's when he jumps down the I fucking don't know what that thing
Yeah,
was.
it's like a
was supposed to
thermal
be.
shaft or whatever. By the way,
I
Jason's putting
guess
on his Star Wars hat, guys.
the big old pit, but like yeah. So the original cut of it, no screaming when he jumps down like that, right? Because it's him choosing of his own volition. He's like, "Fuck you, I'm not going to join the dark side."
Oh, then yeah.
That's
Special edition comes out. George Lucas is like, "I'm going to add a scream in," so he has a scream in.
people lost their minds.
It changes the narrative of it because now it seems like Luke's like scared of doing that kind of thing. And then I don't even know which release it is down the road. He takes it out,
Right.
put it back in. I think finally, like once Disney put out their Blu-ray edition of it or whatever, they took it out again.
Do you remember how long it
And it's
took
just
us
like
to
this
even
whole
get
fucking
to?
thing, and you guys still haven't fixed other shit.
So Joe has a good point too. Fans would get pissed if they did fix it. Fans would get pissed. If they don't fix it, welcome to us. We'll be pissed.
Fans get pissed. That's why fan theories give new life to works that exist. I love fan theories because there's no right or wrong. They're just fan theories.
You can either accept them or you just move past them. Right.
You can say things that really upset Alan, like R2-D2 is the best Jedi. Prove me wrong.
R2 might be a secret Jedi, just so you know.
He is a secret Jedi. He is a secret Jedi. We were watching episode 4 today, and I was pointing out we haven't even gotten 20 minutes into it at dinner, and I was like, and that's the 5th time that R2-D2 used the Force. That
dude was alive forever.
Yes.
And he had the slowest companion in the whole Star Wars multiverse as his friend.
Yeah.
If 3PO was with me, I would have pushed him off a ledge 10 minutes after I met him. I'd be like, "You're too slow, man. We're going to die."
Needed him to vocalize the Force commands that he couldn't vocalize to people. But
oh yeah, Jason was saying the Darth Jar Jar fan theory. I really wanted that to be true.
I wanted it to be true. That would have saved everything. It would have vindicated all of the people's complaints. It would have told the fans to just stick it. Oh, okay. No, you're racist for projecting. Jar Jar was amazing. I don't know why people hate Jar Jar.
I had no beef with that guy. I did like that they used that actor in The Mandalorian. I was glad to see him as a Jedi. I felt like he really needed to.
Yeah.
I hate the fact that he had to go through a bunch of crap. So I'm going to move us away from Star Wars real quick because April had a good comment here saying, I remember being shown The Thing at 6 years old. That's way too young to watch The Thing. We'll never forget the chest busting open. The chest busting open and the head turning into a spider. I think that the scene that scared me the most in The Thing was the Petri dish. You don't know what's about to happen when they shock it, and all of a sudden it's like this ridiculously large thing comes out.
God, I love The Thing because The Thing is like, once you get past the initial horror of the whole movie and stuff, and you actually start looking at it for the effects. Oh my God, that movie's such a treasure trove of special effects. Okay, the Petri dish thing, his hand holding the Petri dish, that's all fake.
That's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that entire hand, because it's supposed to be a rig that shoots that blood monster to the Petri dish. So to be able to do that, this has to be fake, and they just have it in the foreground. And
that's
while Russell Crowe's standing back there
team,
and just doing this,
Kurt Russell, and
Kurt Russell.
That's the same team that did the term. Are you not entertained? I just did that in Arnie voice. Did you? I think it's the same team that did the effects for It's a Cameron. What's that company called?
Stan Winston Studio.
Stan Winston, yeah. I still remember that. You remember the scene in Terminator where he cuts his flesh off and he's like, you see that I remember seeing how they filmed that where they had a fake arm, Arnie's biceps came up to that part of the film, and then the fake arm came up the way my arm is. So he physically cut into the arm and ripped the flesh off, and then it's this metallic endoskeleton. And I was like, that's the kind of effects. That's one of those things that I love movies like Star Wars because of that. I like the old school Star Trek show because of that. I like practical effects. I love, I know the new Mandalorian show does a lot of high def television type stuff in the background. They're not actually on a set, something outside somewhere, but they do a lot of practical effects in that show too. And I think it's gold, man, if you get it right.
That's why puppetry, the puppet Yoda will always be a superior Yoda because he was physically present in the scene. He was more real than Jar Jar was because he was there. So
They just couldn't move as well.
Puppetry arts could have gone so much farther than people let it.
I have a weird nostalgia for like the special effects of the 80s, where not because it's better or anything, but it's because like at least me mentally, I look at it and I'm like kind of like, how did they fucking do this? It's like,
yes,
what chicken wire and popsicle stick shit did they engineer to make this effect work? It's compared to like nowadays when I see something like, say, like in Mandalorian, or even like Fast and Furious or something like that. My brain automatically looks at it and I'll be like, oh, it's a computer. Like, computer did it. However, the surprising thing is like there's a fair amount of stuff that's not computer, but your brain just automatically goes, oh, it's a computer, because it gets cleaned up and whatever. Like,
seamless.
like
Yeah.
it gets a pass. Yeah, so it's seamless. Like, you really can't tell anymore. Like, so anytime I see like, say, a car explosion or like a car flipping over or whatever, more often than not, it is a practical effect that's actually happening. It's actually
Yes.
like a stunt driver, like
do you
wrecking
remember
the
the
shit out of the
Matrix?
car.
They built like that whole they built like a half-mile highway. I think it's the Matrix 3, where they're on a motorcycle sequence.
Or the second one, yeah.
Yeah, and they just keep rotating. And if you see it, the cars are just rotating out, right? Like in opposite directions. And then the motorcycle is just going through each time. And they just filmed it over and over till they got whatever they needed out of it. But it's like a half-mile stretch. What's that? Oh, I don't know.
I think it was.
But they built my point is they built the whole highway.
Mm-hmm.
They're just like, nowadays they would just be like, CGI that highway. We're not gonna blue screen this. Like, we're not gonna build a whole highway for this. But it makes it look so much cooler.
Yeah, I was gonna say not even blue screen. It'll probably be mostly, well, yeah, they'll blue screen. It'll just be mostly CG models that they have set up for everything.
Joe was saying
like a couple
the giraffe in The Last of Us was real, but
that was real. I was surprised by that. I saw that.
Why not bring a real giraffe in?
Exactly. But I saw it show and I was like, well, that's a fake giraffe. But I did say, like, that's a damn good CG render.
Well, that's like all the people that are like a lot of like. Have you else seen The Last of Us?
I haven't seen it yet. No.
Come on, guys. Either way, when they show the zombie, what are they called? Critters, or what are they called? Someone tell me. What? I forgot what they're called. But there's a sequence where like hundreds of them pour out. They actually had like actors dressed up pouring out of the pit. And I thought it was all, I thought a large chunk of that was CG, but they use physical, actors because you'd be more scared of a physical thing coming at you than a fake thing that doesn't exist. Clickers. That's it. Thank you. I don't know why I said critters.
I'm an optimist and a happy person, and like these horror genres. My wife actually made me watch Alien for the very first time.
That's a good movie.
Oh man!
After we'd been married for like 8 or 9 years, she's like, "Wait, what do you mean you've not seen Alien?" And then of course we've watched them all, and they are all terrifying. Every single one. The first one is the scariest. The
first one is. Do you remember the tagline for the first one?
In space, no one can hear you scream.
Yeah, in space, no one can hear you scream. And I was just like, I remember I watched that with my cousins. They laughed. They were scared. They were laughing at me because I was just like super scared. I didn't even want to. I wanted to leave. I was like, I don't want to watch this. This is a bad idea. We watched it in an old theater in Skokie. They did like where they rebooted it and played it, and I was so scared the whole time. I couldn't sleep for a week.
I am most definitely like mentally defunct or something, because I saw that and I was like, yeah, this is awesome.
Good job.
But I had the same thing with John Carpenter's The Thing, like all the same reason why I like a lot of horror movies nowadays, especially because like a lot of those, I think it was because I realized real quick that a lot of it was special effects, and I was like, holy shit, it's the same thing as Jurassic Park. How do you do that?
It's still scary. I like movies with good effects, but it's still scary. Well, horror movies with good effects. Horror movies with good effects are still scary to me. Like, I can't.
What Evil Dead is scary. I know it's not. I know it's Evil Dead is terrifying.
Where the original where the 2 scared. That 2 was the first one I saw, and then I heard that the original is technically 2 is
The
technically
same.
like a
It's the
reboot,
same.
right?
They
Yeah,
remade. They
yeah.
remade the movie. They just had to call it Evil Dead 2 for that was studio stuff. Like
Right. So I saw Evil Dead 2, and I still
Yeah,
remember
it's odd.
that scene where he's listening to the record and the guy or the tape, and the guy's like, "My poor wife, I buried her in the basement, right, or whatever."
yeah.
And then you see like the hatch open up, and you see those two eyes is looking at you, and you're like, "I should not be watching the rest of this." But you slowly go crazy with him, which is what I thought the brilliance of that movie is, right? Like,
Yeah, terrifying.
I heard the new Evil Dead is pretty scary too. Joe was saying the new Evil Dead was solid. I heard,
I'm kind of curious. It's this is more me with my own relationship with Evil Dead. Like that, I feel like that thing should not be a franchise. Just have it be the 3 movies. That's it. I don't need it. I don't need all these other. Because actually, wait. Let me rephrase that. Because like,
yeah, rephrase that so it sounds better.
I'm okay with the idea of like a new Evil Dead. However, like they were talking, and I haven't seen the movie yet to like confirm if this is actually the case or not. But they were talking about how this is supposed to be like in the same universe as like the original trilogy and all that. And I was like, no, like, no, don't do any of that. Like, it doesn't need to be tied
Are you talking about the show?
to all of that. No, the Evil Dead, the new Evil Dead movie that just came out.
Because I thought the reboot was set in modern. I haven't seen the new one yet. I thought the reboot was set
There
in
are
more modern
there are
times.
2 reboot movies. There's one from like
Are
20.
you talking about the one that just came out? The
Yeah, so
mother?
there's one that came out in like 2016 or 2014, I think, and that one's I don't like it, but whatever. To each their own. And I haven't seen this new one that just came out, but this new one apparently like Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell wanted to like tie into the
Sure.
original 3 movies and stuff. We're kind of like, no, just have it be its own thing. Like it doesn't need to be tied into the other stuff or whatever. If anything, I feel like that kind of cheapens it. Be easier if it's just like, yo, here's our
I
own take
mean,
of it. Like I
yeah.
like the idea of it being like, because I guess this is my issue with like a lot of reboot stuff or whatever, where it feels like you have to have it hit certain thematic plot points or like tropes or whatever for it to be tied into the old thing. And I would rather it be
Right.
like someone is told, "Hey, make an Evil Dead movie."
And unchain
Do I
them.
have to make your and like do you have to say like do I have to make your Evil Dead movie? No. Do your own idea of the Evil Dead movie. We don't have any notes. Like
Right.
just go off and do your
I
thing.
think that's what I'm gonna spin it back to Star Wars for a second, but that's what I liked about like Mandalorian season 1 felt like it was its own little standalone story.
So
Yeah.
good. That's the
Right?
best thing
And
they
then,
could have done for the franchise.
and then now it feels like it's spinning it back towards Clone Wars stuff, and I'm just like,
I've steadily lost interest the more it's become tied into the other Star Wars stuff.
I have
think
not
I
finished
so
the second season. The third. I haven't finished the
well.
most
I
recent
could
season.
see why. I'm not gonna give it away, but I could see what they're doing it because they have all these other, you have all these other future Star Wars projects that are built into the world before Force Awakens happens. So they're trying to, and then there are some projects that are happening after. What was Episode 9 called? Last Skywalker.
Yeah.
Or
The
whatever.
Rise of
Yeah.
Rise of Skywalker. So so it's some of it's before, which is like the Mandalorian's 5 years after Return, and I don't remember 20 years before Force Awakens or something, and then the rest of it is after Episode 9. So they're purposely like leaning you in that direction, but like I think you can do those things. Like that's one thing I like about Andor. Like the story of Andor.
And Andor's good enough that it actually made me reevaluate my opinion of
Right.
Rogue One.
It stands
So
it stands on its own without us. Like you didn't even need a single Jedi in there.
See,
right?
I did not like Rogue One. The first 2 times I watched it, I was like, "This is the worst."
No, I'm the same way. I hate
the worst
Rogue
one ever made, and like I had to reevaluate. Now that you guys are saying that Andor is worth watching, I
Dude,
will.
Andor is so good.
And
the thing is, they don't make too many these Star Wars shows. They're not making too many like that because people are like taking it's too serious for them. They want the ship battles. They want the high flying.
My mother said that Obi-Wan was too serious. I was like, well, I mean, what did you expect? He's a tired, old, defeated Jedi who has another like 16 years before he's relevant.
By the way, these guys in the chat, it's hilarious because I still haven't figured out why the YouTube is a couple seconds behind what we're talking about. So they hear you say Rogue One. They heard your first part about Rogue One, and everyone's like, "Kick him off!
Kick him off!" No, it's really good. It's really good. I decided.
They'll hear the rest of it. Yeah,
I just watched it. I just watched it like the day before yesterday with my family. It's an important part of the franchise. It's just sad. It's just sad.
Joe said
like you go in.
Rogue One doesn't hold on a second opening. Joe, see yourself out.
I'm with you, Joe. It doesn't hold up on a first viewing either.
The first viewing was the worst viewing. The second viewing, I was a little better. The third or fourth time I've seen it, it's not. It's just sad. You know that they're all gonna die. Everyone's gonna.
So
die.
so you know the story, but you don't. What I think what's cool is they're interesting. Is you get to see how he got to where he is. Which if they did that with each of the characters from Rowan, I think it'll be kind of cool. You know, like you can do their own stories to see how they got where they are. But I don't think anybody wants that.
There are a couple of actors. And sometimes they're actors and sometimes they're voice actors who I absolutely adore, and I never pick up on it's them until like years later. I'm like, oh my god, that was that actor. How did Gary Oldman is one. Like he especially in his earlier movies, he was very
chameleon
because he's a chameleon, exactly. And I mean, I absolutely love that. And then Alan Tudyk.
Yep.
Who does Gary Oldman voice?
Not in that one, but
okay.
He's like an actor chameleon, like who's hard to identify. And then like Alan Tudyk is the voice actor who I never identify until someone who's like, "Did you know that K2SO was voiced by Alan Tudyk?" And you're like, "What? No way!" And that makes it better too. I'm like, I really do enjoy that now. That droid's got some personality. Yeah, they're hating on me still.
No. Ashley wrote she's gonna eat popcorn for the Star Wars fight. Now we're not gonna get in a fight. We just have opinions on it. This is the beauty of being a Star Wars fan. There's gonna be there's always gonna be someone who's like, I
do highly recommend Andor though, Nelson. It is.
Watch it, you guys. I take your recommendations very seriously. Last week, Conan the Barbarian came up, which I with the
comics.
And that was fascinating. I was like, oh man, they're saying all kind. I'm into that. Yeah, I love Conan. That's a great movie. And then you said something about a movie that came out, and I was with Jason Momoa, and I said, I was flabbergasted.
That movie was
it was absolutely That's a great description. The movie was but I did not know it existed, and I went and watched it. And my wife was terribly disappointed. She's like, "Why did you make me watch that?" And I said, "Well, because you make me watch scary things that I don't like, so I get to make you watch stuff."
Pretty much.
Love you, hon.
Same energy as the Hellboy movie that just came out. Come to think of it,
dude. Andrew, I found out they're filming another one. They just finished production on another one.
Is it still Ron Perlman?
No. No, it hasn't been Ron Perlman for a minute.
I don't want to watch it.
The last
guy I've never heard of.
Hellboy reboot was David Harbour, and then the new one is shit. I forget who it is. It's some guy that like he's been in a couple things, but nothing like super big.
Yeah, I looked up his face, and I was just like, I don't know this guy at all.
It's a whole thing. Like, don't get
my post-its keep falling off my wall. So Jason is saying Mike Mignola said it is the most comic accurate Hellboy. I don't believe that for a second. I'm sorry. Oh my god, what's happening? My wall here is all my stories for book 3, and the post-its are all one by one falling off. Just for the audience to see real quick. There, see.
Oh yeah. Can I theorize about Mignola for a second, or should we just like move on past it?
Let's if we can talk about him without trash talking him, because he's not a bad person.
Yeah, he's not a bad person. It's just like I get a weird feeling that he has hangups about the Del Toro movies. Sure. And I don't know if that's just like an ownership thing. I don't know. It seems like he doesn't want to recognize them for those movies being what they are. Being like, yeah, they're different from my Hellboy movies, but they're good movies or whatever. And he seems to be, at least like lately, like just kind of reading between the lines of like posts and stuff in regards to this movie and then the last movie. Like he seems to really be fixated on wanting to make his own mark
See, Joe's
harder
right.
within the movie.
The first. Joe said the first Hellboy is the most accurate, and I read the first volume and rewatched the movie, and I agree. The first. So I don't know why Mignola would have a hang up with Del Toro, other than like you said, a rights issue, because the first Hellboy was pretty good.
I think it's that, like, it's just maybe he just doesn't feel ownership over the movies, and he wants to have that kind of ownership, which that's fine. That's his prerogative. He's the creator of it.
Well, the first
Yeah.
Hellboy movie came out when there weren't a lot of movies like that. There weren't comic book movies being made aside from like the Batman, right?
Dark Knight, yeah, that was Dark Knight came out around the same time as Hellboy.
And I mean, like, I don't remember where it was in sequence, but you know, some people have really, you know, negative feelings towards the Batman Forever. But I thought that was super cartoony and comic booky too.
Yeah.
Like I think that the '90s era movies were trying to find their stride with comic books, and I kind of like the way that they did it.
They
You
achieved
like Batman
perfection
Forever?
with
Is that what you
Blade.
said?
Oh yeah.
Dude, Blade was so Blade is the like it's the movie that gave you the rest of the Marvel movies.
I'll say this: superhero movie is ever matched and will ever match Blade, because Blade has the one line: "Some motherfuckers always trying to ice skate uphill," and that line is pitch perfect. There cannot be a better line written.
Dude, that movie. So like I always describe. So you remember the opening sequence where he goes to the club, right? Where that dude gets taken to the club and all the vampires basically try to eat him, and the Blade shows up and wrecks shit. That's how I just. So I was in Germany, I think 5 years ago, and I made friends with. I was in Berlin, and I made friends with the hotel staff, and they let on that Guns N' Roses thing in the hotel. Long story short, I go drinking with them in the middle of the night. They take me to a club, a German club. I didn't go in
like a Blade thing.
It looked like the scene from Blade from the out. Like the doors opened, and all I saw was the crowd and the music, and I was like, "Nah, I ain't going in there." Like I was like going back to the hotel. They're like, "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah, man. I've seen how this ends, and I don't want to go."
Like,
right.
Right.
I was just like, "This is." It looked crowded and scary in there, and I felt like I was gonna end up like in a icy bathtub with no kidneys. Like. I was like, nah, I'm good.
Do you want to go to D&D for a little bit?
Yeah, so his Conan, the Barbarian comment reminded me of the D&D aspect of I was going to talk about D&D because we all play D&D. Was it? I can't remember. It was you, Andrew, or somebody was. I was trying to figure out like how, like Gygax like came up with the idea, right? And somebody mentioned to
Dungeons
me like
and Dragons
of the D&D, and somebody mentioned to me that he read a lot of Conan and he liked. What's the world called? Hyperion?
Yeah, Hyperion.
And like, the barbarian aspect of it started. And that world had, if you think about it, a barbarian, a wizard, rogues. Pretty much the classes we play existed in all the Conan comic books, right? And then
see, that's interesting. I didn't know that he based it.
I don't know if that's true or not, man. Don't quote me on it. I'm just
I wonder now because
I'm curious because if anybody watching knows.
If he's ever if Gary Gygax had ever cited it as like an influence of something he liked, then it most definitely influenced the world that he built. I mean, like, no, I don't think anybody at this point can question the genius of, inventing a game where you pretend storytell with your friends. But like, I feel like people have been playing some version of that without dice for a lot longer.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah.
It was inevitable that it was going to come about, and I feel like and I like the system that they got now. Like as each of the systems have progressed, like
a lot of people are. I know people are mad about how stuff's moving, but I'm working on Ancient Ones RPG built in 5e, and you can work it into any of your campaigns fairly easily. And then I heard Cobalt Press just announced their version of whatever their rule set is, along with whatever 5e's are open license, which I was under the impression all of it is open license. So I don't know why they're trying to spin it like only some of it is, but
well, like some of the newer releases, and publications aren't part of the open license. Like, I'm trying. I will be wrong if I say anything, but like Unearthed Arcana is still I think is still not open license. You can find it on the internet in a D&D wiki, but that is not legal.
That's not legal. So you mentioned, Nelson, that you're working on your own homebrew.
Yeah. I just played through. I just played through a level 10 to 20 campaign with some guys
Dang.
in Brian Colin's World of Revelo.
Okay.
We
Okay.
had a glorious slog going through some of that story and letting them interact with it. And they don't have any real familiarity with it because well, they hadn't seen it till then.
Was it you and I? Did I play in that world with you once when he was playtesting it? I can't remember. Where I stabbed the butler or whoever that guy was.
No, that was probably
Oh.
Isaac.
Oh,
But
okay.
like, yeah, because he did a lot. He did a lot more of the writing of the D&D content. I didn't do much writing of the content
Gotcha.
for D&D with Brian. We did story stuff. I did some of the Fate stuff early on, but
Right. Okay. Yeah, I played with the Fate system and I was like, I don't
I
hate it.
like Fate, but the problem is that what's makes D&D so good is the polyhedrals, the multiple polyhedral dice and rolling dice. And it's just not, for me, is not as satisfactory pluses and minuses. It's more simple. It's easier to get a kid game involved like that. So when I DM for kids, like for my daughters or my daughter's friends or some of my other friends' kids, I use a much more simplified system that basically uses a +1, +2 for everything, and we roll a d20 still because I like d20s. I like those
That's
polyhedrals.
that's exactly how I
Actually,
described it to my developer.
I have a question about that. Like DMing kids, like when did you introduce D&D to like your kids? Like when did you feel like they were old enough to like be able to understand the rules and play it and kind of grok everything?
Well, I love that you said grok. I started playing games like that as soon as I realized that she wanted me to play pretend with her all the time. And I needed to play pretend while sitting down because I don't know what it is about a child's imagination and the endless energy, but it is exhausting to
It's a
play.
lot.
A lot.
It's exhausting to play pretend. And if I could play pretend at the table and then she can have a sword and she can swing it around, if you're willing to flex on what the rules are, you can start playing D&D with kids.
I think like Brian runs a D&D for My Little Ponies.
Oh, that's
game
fun. I
for
want
his
to play
kid.
that too.
I think Brian's one of telling me about that.
That
There's actually
sounds
people watching who I played. Joe and Jason. These guys are all in D&D campaigns with me. So we haven't played in a minute. We've all been busy.
The campaign that we are just starting that I was telling you about is the one, and we're starting at level 1. But I had ChatGPT, the OpenAI,
Yes.
write the campaign. I had it write the story. I had it create the major characters. I had it create a series of encounters and chapters. I had it break it out into like what various chapter they should be at. And
so that's pretty interesting.
It was really fun because it took a lot of the heavy lifting, which
Sure.
is, I think, ultimately is going to be the benefit of AI, is removing the burden of generating the content, because it's going to take a human to make the content not suck for a long time.
Yeah.
It's going to take a human to make the content not suck. But like, I don't know if you've ever sat down to write something and it took you 3 hours to get through the draft. Well, this will get you through the draft in a minute and a half, and then you can spend 20 making it not suck. And you've spent 25 minutes instead of 3 hours, and you've got a product that you feel good about moving on with. That's going to be the benefit, is that it'll be a tool to lessen how much effort we have to put in to spit it out, because it's just spitting out words, the same words that we would spit out if we wanted to spend 3 hours spitting out those words. So the computer is just doing it a little faster than we invariably will. And I'm really hoping that the campaign's going to go well. We'll see. Having trouble uploading the video to YouTube right now. Something about OBS and exporting it to YouTube. I have to convert it to an MP4 from whatever its native file is.
Through OBS?
Yeah.
We use Streamlabs right here, and this whole show is automatically pushing to YouTube right now. And when this is done, it'll automatically upload there.
Yeah, because that's where I was. Yeah.
I'll walk you through it later.
All right.
Yeah. Do you only use Roll20, or like do you use any other systems, or is it just like Roll20 and beyond D&D?
Yeah, we use Roll20 for our maps and the character involvement. Most of those characters do create character sheets in Roll20. I've always told my players that if they wanted to roll live dice, then they could. I mean, if I can't
Mhm.
trust them to be honest with their rolls, then
Right.
I'm not playing the right game.
Yeah, that's fair.
Uh,
There
so
was there's one system I wanted to use, monkey around with it more, but the the access for it makes it difficult because essentially, like unlike Roll20 where it's like a web browser thing, or like D&D Beyond where just the DM has to have the books and then
Hmm.
everyone else can basically get in on that.
yeah.
This system, unfortunately, like everyone has to have a copy of it, which is kind of like, well, that's a hard ask to get people in on it. I think Alan, you have it too. Tailspire.
Oh my God, Tailspire is
Yeah,
amazing.
Steam.
Oh, do you have it too? Do you have
I
it?
haven't tried. I haven't messed with it.
I kickstarted Tailspire. I was on the original Kickstarter. I bought subscriptions.
Oh,
I'm yelling
this is
now.
gonna
I'm
be
sorry.
this
Yeah.
No,
this
you're
could be a
fine.
fun conversation then. No, this could be fun because I wasn't sure if you knew it or not.
It is amazing, and everyone has to have a
Like
copy.
the
And
idea of it a lot.
I got a copy for everybody. I went ahead and kickstarted a copy for everybody in my regular session, and then of course we added a new player and like didn't use it. We were going to use it some, but it's building the boards and the user interface is challenging. If
Yeah.
I'm in their Discord and they'll occasionally have live games, so you can just drop in and watch them play a game in Tailspire. But like a it is like a virtual world. I mean, like you're walking through the world. You have to move your character through a door, and then the inside of the room is there, and you can animate the bad guys to shake and do stuff.
But you got to build. You got to build all that out.
You have to essentially build the whole thing. Yeah.
And it's challenging if
Which
you have somewhere to go, because like I built a map that was way too big for my characters, and
Sure.
ultimately wound up having to just pull all of the monsters close to them because they weren't. You know, D&D parties are notoriously unreliable when you need them to be somewhere. So, like,
Yes. We're
like
consistently.
yeah, we are.
the
You
action
have to
was
bank on
stalling,
them doing
you
the
know?
opposite of what you want them to
Yes.
do every time.
Yeah.
That's the
But
fun
Yeah,
of
that
D&D.
It's
that
great.
is one of the drawbacks of it. I do know you can have like the prefab buildings, like you can basically save out yourself some prefab stuff or whatever. That kind of makes it a little bit easier. I love the idea of like rolling the dice, and I love the look of it where it has that like tilt shift look to everything.
Yep.
But yeah, it's like you said, like building the maps and then the UI stuff is
It's just something to learn.
it's a little grueling.
My
Yeah.
my group that we were playing with were very used to Tabletop Simulator, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the navigation in Tabletop Simulator is incredibly straightforward. And the navigation in Tailspire was not as straightforward, or it's not the same thing, and that was causing some issues for us as well. But like you can change the time of day in the game, so like you can
You can
manipulate
do
the
weather
passage
too,
of
I
time,
think,
you can
right?
do
Yep.
weather. There's
Yeah.
water, you can play underwater now. And you get to set your character where they are. So like the swimming or flying
It's
no longer is as big of a problem. It's very cool what they're doing.
I have to look into that. I haven't touched
I'm
it
trying to
since I
remember,
got
do
it.
they have I kind of remember them planning to do Hero Forge integration. I can't remember if they
Yes.
have or not.
I don't think
don't
they have yet.
I don't think that they have fully. It's definitely still something that's talked about
Okay.
in their Discord. But again, like I haven't played in it because everybody has to have a copy for me to play in it.
That's the
Was
biggest
three of us
hurdle,
right
I
here,
think,
man.
yeah. Yeah, no,
Dude,
like
I'll make
I
a
would love to
map.
try it sometime.
I'll
Yeah.
make a map and
I would
crash you
like to
guys.
I would just like to like do a session just to we can
We'll
actually
play
do
it
a
one
call
shot.
about it and
Fun.
put a screen up and let people watch just to see what it's about.
Yeah.
You know, I'm curious.
Oh yeah, that'd be fantastic.
I mean, like to watch us muddle around try to get the their interface correct, but like I mean, it is so pretty. It's not you can the way you hide stuff, like it's the GM layer. It's all very innovative. They knew what they were doing when they started,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
like that was the thing. Like I've kickstarted a bunch of stuff that hasn't
Cause see, like
materialized. That
the
was like
last.
over. They were shooting for the moon and it was too far, but they got exactly what they wanted.
Okay, I'd like to
Yeah.
try it because I the last Roll20 was the one I started with, so I always stuck with Roll20. I tried learning Foundry BTT for like a month. I paid for it, right? It's like $50, and
Oh,
it's
dude.
yours. well, it's $50 and it's permanent, right? You own it. So I tried. I love the idea. You can do like you can basically draw a line for what do you call it? Vanishing points. So like you can do stuff like if your character walks around this wall, it shows him or her whatever they see. But the second they go back this way, this area gets cloudy again, like a fog of war. A fog of war, that's what it is. But it fogs out as if like you don't have perfect memories of what you saw there because now you're looking in this other direction. But you have to like make the maps, draw it all out, put all the points in there. Well, you can put doors in so the characters can't go through doors and stuff.
Tailspire is similar. You can set the visibility distance. Like you basically set the render distance of the characters. Like
so, I think the people that did Tailspire probably like they took the idea of these Roll20 and the idea of VTT, and then they turned it into this cool like 3/4 view, right? Like you can like I think I like that because like a chessboard almost, right?
You might really enjoy it if you're technically savvy, right? Like if you're technically savvy at all, then the controls are obvious. And both of you are frequent Photoshop and programs like that users that have just so many different tools for things.
Oh, we just press one button in Photoshop, man. It makes all our art.
So what's funny is like I can figure out the UI, but it's the same issue I have with like certain city building games or like certain management type games that let you do like a lot of customization. And this is something I realized for myself is because my day job and my freelance stuff is all creative pursuits, I find I have very little energy to sit down and be like, okay, I got to design this zoo exhibit now for this zoo game, or I have to design this board game now thing. It's like, man, I don't want to do that. I just want to have something ready and grab and go. Like I struggle really to with those kind of customization things. I realize it's more for people that don't have that kind of outlet constant.
Yeah.
And
I struggle even when I just run.
They have.
Even when I just run our D&D camp, my D&D games, right? Like, I use, in our campaigns, Claire uses maps. I use maps from Patreon people, basically because, like, sometimes you just don't have the time to make the map. But hey, someone's actually done the work for you. If you figure out a way to work that map into your story, like.
Tailspire, if I were to jump in it, I would absolutely just basically go through the workshop, download as many different prefabs as I can find to be like, cool, and then just remix it all onto a map itself.
The user community is great. They publish all kinds of slabs. They publish slabs for specific person, like Castle Ravenloft. If you're gonna play Ravenloft,
oh my fucking lord,
they have a Ravenloft in there.
That whole mod has already been built. Somebody has already built that, and it's published and it's free. You just go on and you grab the slab and pull it in there. The user community is absolutely fabulous too. So
it's probably like a bunch of people like building Minecraft worlds.
Like it is Minecraft D&D, which was actually my first D&D session was in Minecraft.
I'm not gonna lie, cool. Alan, I would fucking love it if Ghost City was made in Tailspire. if the Ghost City campaign we're playing was made in Tailspire.
We'd have to convince everyone to buy Tailspire.
I've always wanted. I mean, I've not looked into it whatsoever, so this is probably just me pie in the sky wishing. But I wondered if there is a way to be able to have one person basically stream the game, and then just be like, okay, where do you want to move? Like, just let me know, and I'll move your character.
We could do that in Discord.
Except that the GM has to
GM tools that are there.
The GM has to toggle back and forth between what the players can see and what they can't see. So if the GM's streaming, then everybody gets to see what the GM sees.
See all the hidden stuff is.
There are issues with all that, but like a couple people with one person sharing the screen in general probably wouldn't be the worst. What did you say? What was the name? I want to look it up because I bet somebody has made it. Like the Tailspire community is great. It's been out for.
What he said is we're in So we play a Spelljammer campaign, and every time what ends up happening is sometimes some of us are busy and some of us are available. When the people that are available are ready to play still, if we're available, we play another campaign, which is a haunted ghost city, and we're essentially Ghostbusters. And,
that's fun. And
anyone can play. That way, like, if like 5 of us are available and the other 4 of us aren't, we'll just be like, us 5 are going to go ghost hunting. But we haven't played in the last couple weeks, so we've all got some personal things we're dealing with. So
the other day I thought of a backup character just in case my Dicaria gets wiped.
Andrew creates, like, you could tell this guy, like, he spends time on his character. He just creates like the wildest. Like he created like a fish dude in our last campaign. I think we all
Oddball.
did that. Yeah, oddball. And then in this one, he's a mushroom. I'm a little detective cat, tabaxi essentially, right? But
not just a mushroom, but a mushroom that has a lifespan of like 12 to 13 months.
Yeah, so he's gonna be dead pretty soon.
I'm on like month 6.
That's awesome. The character creation is actually the hardest part for me. Like sitting down and making those decisions is so hard.
It's gotten easier once I have if Joe's still watching, he's in a campaign with me where I play a rogue, which is probably like one of the best characters I've ever made in a D&D campaign. I really took the time to think about him. I really took the time to think about his backstory with the DM, and like there's a bunch of stuff the players don't know about him yet. But essentially, he started out being a bard because he's actually in hiding, and now they kind of have. His name is Bastion.
Bastion, okay.
Yeah, and he's the character I sent you where he's standing on top of the tavern table, giving you the middle finger.
Yes.
So he's got like Joe's here. So like this campaign I'm in with Joe, it's me, Ben Hill, Joe, I'm spacing Brianna, and we're all like these. I'm forgetting somebody. Why am I forgetting somebody? I'm tired.
Who's GM? You?
Claire's the DM. But like it's one of the most. Yes, he's died. So Joe knows he's died 3 times. My character's died 3 times. Okay, that he knows of, because he knows some of my past. He knows they know that I'm a rogue. They know I was an assassin class, right? But there's stuff about me they don't know. But like all of us, our characters in this campaign have like serious writing, serious backgrounds, right? But then, oh yeah, Bean. So we all have like these unique characters, each one of us, right? But then our friend Jason Smith, who's also watching, he created a Spelljammer campaign. And when I made my character for that campaign, initially I tried to create it the same way. Let's get serious. Let's make this character super like specific. But before we played the Spelljammer one, we did a test run campaign, I guess. And Andrew was this character called Oddball. And I played a vampire or dampire, and I had a little fun with him. And then when we made this actual full Spelljammer campaign, I made my character without being too serious about it. She's basically a cursed fairy. And I picked Artificer because I went through the book and I said, what haven't you ever tried? Artificer is very difficult. I probably shouldn't have done that, But what I did do based on that is I gave her a cursed blunderbuss, which Jason has let me. It's so special. The thing fires. When it does work, it fires something random out of it. You roll a d20. You roll the attack. If you land the attack, you roll a d20. And we've got a list of 20 random things that can come out of it, which is, and she's cursed. Now these guys know my curse. As last session, I morphed. When it works, it works. When it doesn't, it sucks. And then we had more fun. Yeah, and we cursed her. So like now when the curse goes in effect, she's a shifter. So she can shift into 6 different things. And last time she shapeshifted into basically a werewolf with wings, But my point of it is like, some characters you take seriously if you're in a serious campaign, but our Spelljammer campaign is like, it's wild. Like we just do the wildest things in there, and then the one with the mushroom and the cat, we're in a haunted house, just having a good time.
The Spelljammer campaign, Jason created we were at a casino.
Yes.
And we're in this casino, we're going to see a crime boss kind of thing. And afterwards, we were like, well, let's fuck around, like let's play some games or whatever to idle the time. One of our friends decided to play with this
roulette wheel.
Actually, let me preface this. So we all had played this roulette wheel before he joined our campaign. This roulette wheel is death. It's basically like a random choice of what horrible thing do you want happen to you. So
some of us got stuff from it, though, right?
No.
Somebody got like a dagger or something from it.
I think one person got a dagger. The first time that we played it,
yes.
They summoned a Grim Reaper that immediately started attacking us.
And we still
So
spun it again. We were just like, let's just see what
so
happens.
our friend that
That had to be the worst.
Brian.
Brian that joined the campaign late, he saw the roulette. He was like, "Oh well, like can I try it?" And we were kind of like, "Well, you could, sure." He rolled it, and we're
Yeah,
like,
God,
we
he
told
got it the
him like,
worst.
we told him ahead of time. We're like, "Be ready. Something might fucking come out of this thing," because that's all we had like dealt with was something coming
Like
out of
we're
this
all
roulette
standing
thing.
around him, weapons drawn, ready to fight,
Yeah.
right?
So he rolls, he gets a number, and then Jason just goes, uh, he goes, "Brian, what's your intelligence?" And I think what was Brian? He was 12.
He was smart to start.
He was smart. He was smart. We'll say 12. I don't remember the exact number, but he goes like, "Oh, I'm like 12 or 14 or whatever." And Jason goes, "Yeah, your intelligence is now 5.
Oh God.
Permanently. This isn't temporary, permanently."
That's when you like forget which end of the which end of the sword you're supposed to use, and you just make a new character. Oh my God, that's awful.
But
Yeah.
the beauty of it is now is
Fucking died
like,
laughing at that though.
the beauty is now when he has to make an intelligence check, it's like super. It's funny to the rest of us,
Oh
not so
yeah.
much to him. I'm sure we feel bad because I feel like we all kind of like told him to spin it, but none
Well,
of
you
us
didn't tell him.
expected
You
that.
said you could, and
Well,
you didn't know
nothing.
all the bad things that could happen. It's a roulette wheel. I don't know how many numbers are on a roulette wheel. Presumably at least 20.
Like that,
Yeah,
yeah.
but
After that, though, I do remember after that we pretty much swore off. We're like, we're never doing this
we're
roulette
not doing
wheel
that
again.
anymore.
And
Yeah,
then Jason gave us an idea of like some of the other stuff was on there. None of it was good.
none of
I
it
think
was.
out
So
of
he
all
said.
the
Jason
things,
said
I think
Claire.
all the things he listed, there's one thing good, right?
Claire got a horn.
A horn.
We don't know what the horn does yet. So for
That
all we
horn could be
know,
evil.
that horn could be
It could be
cursed.
an evil horn.
You just summon the legions of the underdark.
I mean, no one's ever actually blown into it, so we don't know what it could do. But none of us are
Or
spinning
use it.
that wheel again. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, that's fun.
We're off
You're
the
gonna
wheel.
you'll find a real good time to use the wheel and that or use the horn, and that'll be cool.
But like,
Oh God, something awful is gonna happen when we use that horn.
those are the kind of sessions I think are if you're playing with, and the thing is, the group of people we're playing with, like, Brian lost his intelligence, but he didn't like huff and puff and get mad. He was just like, well, that just
he was just like, well, I guess I'm dumb now.
yeah, it's like
Dumb now.
but those are the kind
Yeah.
of players you want to play with, right? You don't want players who are going to get super like, like, yes, you're allowed to get upset about certain things. I got upset once because my character was being held upside down, and I was like, I'm your friend, don't hang me upside down, like.
An addendum
But
to that, if I remember right, sorry, Alan. Like, didn't he also lose his gear as a result of that roulette wheel?
something,
Can you help us? Can you remind me? Like, didn't his like gear also
Jason,
disintegrate as well as
I
the
think he
intelligence
lost his
fail?
he lost his weapon somehow because we have to build him a new bow staff. I
Yeah.
don't. Jason can answer. He's still watching. I don't remember how he lost it, but I know we have to build a new bow staff. So
Man.
yeah,
It was fucking wild.
I think Jason. I think
well,
Jason
like,
was just tired. He was just like,
when
tired.
badness happens, it tends to compound. And like when you're playing a role playing game, and the badness is happening to you, it feels kind of crappy. But then you get to succeed at something, and that's supposed to make you feel better.
Dude, you have the campaign, Claire's campaign. I have the last couple times we fought enemies. I keep bringing them down to like 1, and I can't get that extra kill point. And then somebody else gets the how do you want to do it, and I'm just sitting here like, that was my kill.
Wanted to do it. That's
like
cool.
I get like, oh man, it's so frustrating, but it's like that's just the way I used every bag of tricks I had on this last guy, and I was just like, well, I left him with 1. I'm like, what are you gonna do? You can just enjoy the fact that you didn't die for the 5th time.
Yeah.
But I play a campaign with my really close friends that live here, and that character is one of my favorites too. I create a little halfling that runs around with a giant sledgehammer, or warhammer, and he's got a chain of return, so when he throws it, you can pull it back. But I run with a dwarf who consistently fastball specials me into things, and I was like, that's the way. Andrew and I team up in our games too. You know, it's just like it's fun if you can like when you learn what your players in your campaign can do to work together as a team. You know, and you start
that's part of the fun of developing the story is like figuring out like what you not only what can your character do to have purchase and ownership of this world, but like what can you do as a part of this D&D community that you've built? Like
Yep.
this is your adventuring party, and if you're not together, then you may as well be doing it by yourself. So
right.
I get to get us to eat a horse as part of a team building exercise. Well, not really a team building exercise, but I did try to get everyone to eat a horse.
I'm going to work that into my campaign somehow.
Do you remember that, Alan?
Yeah, you did. He made a pretty good effort at it too. Like, we're not going to eat this horse, man. Because we were like, what do we do with the horses when they get to the other spot? You know, like he was like,
so we needed 6 horses to get to a destination, and the 6 horses were like X amount of gold. But then we also needed food for those. Like, how many days was it? It was like a week's worth of journey.
It was like a week's worth of journey. Yes.
And we had like about 6 people in our party. So 6 times 7, assuming you had like actually 6 times 14, because we assumed like 2 meals a day for everyone. So I was like, oh god, that's a lot of rations. And we saw what the cost of the rations were. So I was like, we don't have to buy rations for the entire time. We have 6 horses. And everyone needs a horse. Double up. Like, we're essentially cats on horses. They won't notice 2 people on them any more than they would notice 1 person. And a horse, what do you figure? A side of horse? That's like a decent meal. That could probably feed you for 1 week anyway.
Yeah, one horse would feed your party for a number of days, I'd think.
So that everyone was not about that plan, and then I realized like, it had been ages since I played D&D, so I wasn't familiar with how Beyond looks and everything in terms of like the layout and all that. So eventually, I realized I forgot that I was rich, and I saw my gold amount, and I was like, oh wait, I could just buy us all food. Never mind about the horse thing.
He's like this like rich Atlantean king of some sort,
like fish monster.
Well, logically we don't have to buy it, but we can.
I mean, that's just the fun of it, right? Like my character is consistently putting food in his bag, so he's always eating. It's just a little thing you do on the side to give your character his own spin, right? Like otherwise you're playing. Yeah. You don't want to play it just like a plain. Like I finally got my group of friends that I'm trying to learn how to DM, so I have a group of friends I DM with, and initially they were just by the rules, like, we're gonna go here, we're gonna fight this, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. And I finally slowly I'm getting them to open up a little bit more, because I'm like, I want to see some personalities from your characters. Like, you're a paladin. Like, one guy's a paladin, he's totally always like killing people and stepping on people. I'm like, yo, you're supposed to be like helping people, and what kind of paladin are you? And like, I'm starting to feel like he's not an actual paladin, but
give him a consequence, man. Like, make his god turn on him and make him.
Dude, he couldn't. I put him in this one room with a statue of his god, and he rolled so low on his intelligence check, he couldn't remember his own god. I'm like, good thing you can't remember your own god. Good job.
Wow,
I love it.
That's part of the story now. That's fun.
My favorite thing I've done is I once had a group of I was playing with who I sold them peanut butter and jelly sandwiches from a goblin that was poisoned sandwiches. One person in the group ate it. Then I waited a couple rounds till they were transversing through a cave, and I made him roll Constitution. Brian Colin actually gave me a full idea on how to work this, but I made him roll Constitution, and when he failed, I made him basically crap his pants. And I'm just like, well, you have 2 choices. You better have no pants on, or what did it actually say? If they go Western hang up about meat, Jose. If they go evil, don't they become like corrupted paladins or something? I get for sick. He's not. So here's the thing. I don't think he's evil. He's like, paladins are supposed to be like lawful good, but I think he's like in the middle area. The player I think wants to do like be a badass, and like what I'm getting from him right now is I want to come off tough and I want to be able to pick on people, but paladins are supposed to be like nobles, right? They're not supposed to be like, he massacred these group of people that worship a dragon. I'm like, all the guy did was step up to you. You're supposed to just push him away, and so I've got a little idea for him later.
Actually, I have a question about that with like paladins. So, if a corrupted paladin like a religious zealot, or could you role play as a religious zealot while still being lawful good? Because it's not really like universal good and evil. It's basically what you define as good, right? So you could say like, well, they were worshiping a god that wasn't my god.
Well, like
Therefore,
lawful,
they had to be smoked.
like I think paladins have to be lawful. I don't think that they have to be good. And like somebody was pointing out, corrupted paladins are evil paladins. Well, it's a neutral. What's a
Isn't
neutral
lawful
paladin?
just like
Lawful is
like you just follow like your own strict code of ethics?
code. Well, so like Darth Vader is like a lawful evil paladin. Like I mean that's
Right.
that's Vader with the Force. But
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
I mean,
So
I'm
paladin
gonna build my
doesn't necessarily
paladin
have to be
around
good
Vader.
or whatever. They just have to be kind of lawful because they have a strict code of ethics that they follow within their own like internal
but you can't
framework.
you can, I guess. It becomes a problem if you're an evil paladin, walking around with a group of lawful good. You can do it.
Yeah,
it's gonna be a hard campaign because you're basically walking around with a murder hobo.
That was the twist that I put on to the last campaign that we went through. Like most of the guys that I was playing with had all been playing D&D for a long time. They've made lots of characters. They've had a good time. So I said, okay, guys, we'll go for this. I've got all this content that we can explore. You're an evil party. Make me some evil characters. And we played level 10 to 20 as an evil party, and they made evil choices. And then we had to decompress at the end of a lot of these sessions. Like,
sure,
wow, that was a problematic thing that we just did. This is all fantasy. Everybody's cool, right? Like it's something.
See, that's the problem with that
fun.
angle. There's a fun aspect to it, but then there's an aspect where you're just like, we've gone too far with this. Like I've played in campaigns where the players have gotten a little too like too much, and I'm just like, I don't really want to play at this level. I want to play it, like,
we won't do it again. It was the experience. Like then that's why we started at 10 and we went to 20 to finish the story. That was it.
Yeah, because there's only so much of that you can do.
Yeah, we're back traditional. It's traditional high fantasy.
Gotcha. Jason's commenting on how we always circle back to Star Wars. It's like, yep, could do that all day.
It's the most important franchise that exists in the history of franchises.
Preach. We're a little over time. I feel like we can do this again and forever, so we should definitely do it again. But yeah, dude, I'll definitely want to get you back
thank
on.
You for coming on.
This is a fun combo. You're just as geeky as we are.
Nelson, is there anywhere anyone can find you online, or?
Yeah, I'm at Nelson_Spratt. That's my name is pretty much my Insta across all the social medias. Maybe if I do this more often, I'll plug my LLC, but it's basically just a placeholder right now, so we'll just leave that one off.
Gotcha. Okay. How about you, Allen?
AncientOnes.net, all over. AllenPanakal on all socials. Same thing I said last time. AllenPanakal on TikTok. I'm still trying to get my name. Still squatting on my name. Someday I won't have to. Someday I'll get
TikTok.
Well, I think it's going to come down to once the logos and stuff are trademarked, then I can actually fight the fact that I have a trademark.
Force it
down the line. But I also need to justify using TikTok, which I don't use as often as I'd like to.
Pretty funny.
It's just not my thing. I usually only promote the shows. And then I just relaunched my store, so if anyone wants to buy some stuff, it's all built in Shopify, which we talked about Shopify last time. I'm still tweaking it. I'd say it's about 80% ready to rock and roll. It could look better, but got step one done. Store's back up. So, Andrew, where can we find your stuff?
asidesart.com. You can sign up for the newsletter there, even though Squarespace and MailChimp are not being friends anymore unless I upgrade the plan, which is a whole other thing. Nelson's familiar with it because I was talking with him about it over email. But you could also find me on Instagram, asidesart there as well. Twitter, I'm not really on there a whole lot anymore, but it's the same thing. Pretty much asidesart anywhere you can find me.
Yeah, Twitter, I feel like a lot of social media is just tanking. So, yeah, we don't want to get into that conversation.
Don't end on social media.
Yeah. We're not going to end on social media. We had a really good conversation. We'll definitely have you back, Nelson. It was fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool, guys. Thanks, everyone who was watching. You know, a bunch of our friends were watching and talking and asking questions. I appreciate all you guys. Our next guest,
Oh, hold on. I think I have.
I lost my notebook.
Excuse me.
It's on that sticky note on the floor.
It's
next
not, yeah,
on May 26th, we have Chris O'Neill, Brotherwise.
Oh, yes. Okay, yes. Perfect. Yeah, we have Brotherwise games on. We're going to try to get both brothers, but Chris will definitely be on. And we'll talk board games.
And then June 2nd is Stanko or Stanko? I can't remember. I don't know
John
how to name
Stanko. Yeah, so that's
John
Stanko's
Stanko.
piece is that one hanging right there on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
He is going to talk about probably a lot of ZBrush and building.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that.
He built that whole thing in ZBrush and painted it with oils. So
yeah. And then June 9th is Matt Paquette, and then June 16th is Grace Fong.
Yep, those guys are all locked in, so we're good to go. Cool. We have a busy schedule. So
yeah.
All right, I'm gonna take us offline. Give me a second. Thanks again, guys. Appreciate all you guys for watching.
Yeah, thanks for watching.
For being on.